Well, hi, everybody. Thank you for joining us in our regular Monday night spot. It is great to be back, and we are happy to have you here for Let's Paint Live with Plaid in the Michaels Community Classroom. And tonight we have a treat. We are being taught by Andy Jones. And if those of you who have participated in one of Andy's classes before, he is a phenomenal teacher, and you will be guaranteed to learn something that you did not know before. And so we're excited to have Andy teaching. Now, he's just told me what it's called. Is it Summer Kaleidoscope? Is that right, Andy?
Yes, that's right.
Summer Kaleidoscope is the name of the painting for this evening. And I think Jimena covered a lot of the points, mainly that this class is being recorded. So if you do feel like you're falling behind, or you just want to watch this session and participate in the chat, and then go back and paint in your own time, please feel free to do that. Sometimes that's even easier to do than to try to keep up in real time. But of course, if you want to paint along, we're excited to have you do that as well. So I think that's enough for now. I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to you, Andy.
Okay. Hi, everybody, and welcome to Michael's Community Classroom. I'm thrilled to be with you again on this Monday night. I was trying to think if it was Monday, and it is. So thrilled to be here with you. I want to tell you that we will be painting the Summer Kaleidoscope tonight. And as always, our classes are taught at a brisk pace. We try to keep it so that everyone can keep up if they want to. But if for some reason you feel like you're falling behind or becoming frustrated, please put down your paintbrush, just watch along. You can pick up a lot of information just from watching. And then when you can watch the video, you can paint it at your own pace, pausing the video when you need to stop, or rewinding when you need to go back for clarification on something. So we don't judge. If you need to stop and just watch and then paint along afterwards. So that's perfectly fine. All right, and so just one other little word from me. You can save yourself some time. If you are always typing slow down, you can save yourself time from doing that, because I don't pay any attention to that. We've got to move the class along. And so I understand that no matter what speed I'm going at, it's just too fast. But I want to mention the template that you could download from the Michaels website. And I have a feeling that some of you probably have not done that. So if you are sitting at your computer right now, you can, as quickly as you can, try to download the template so that you can transfer your design. Or when we get to that point, I'm going to show you how to transfer your design to your painted background. So anyway, we'll deal with design in just a little while, but we are going to start with our modeled background that is behind our tulips and our vase. So if everybody is ready, I have a 9x12 stretched canvas here. And tonight I am using the FolkArt Pure Artist Pigments. And I'm also using some FolkArt Gesso. And I put that on the supply list because tonight I wanted, the background is going to be pretty light in value, and I wanted something that was going to slide around really easy. So Gesso makes a fantastic white for painting. So I'm going to put out a puddle of white for my background, and I'm also going to put out 2 more little squirts of Gesso, and I'll probably interchange the word white with Gesso tonight because I want to confuse you. But the only white I'm using tonight is the FolkArt Gesso. So I've got 3 puddles of Gesso on my palette, and I'm also going to put out a little bit of the FolkArt Pure Payne's Gray. Now, some of you will say you don't have the FolkArt Pure Artist Pigments and you don't have Payne's Gray. So what I will tell you is you will need about a 1/4 of a chocolate chip of pure black, and then an even smaller amount of that of Prussian blue. So Prussian blue and black will give you a color close to Payne's Gray. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a little Payne's Gray to one of my puddles here on the palette, and I'm going to make a nice soft gray color. And the Payne's Gray is a very nice kind of blue-gray color, and I did not add enough when I started. So as always, I clean my palette knife off every time I've used it, wipe it on my shop towel, and then I can go back and pick up color, and my palette knife isn't going to mess up my puddle of Payne's gray. Some people would just stick the white in the Payne's gray, and then it's like that old commercial for Reese's peanut butter cups. You get your peanut in your chocolate and your chocolate in your peanut butter. And I think on a palette, it's best that we keep everything separate. Now, for mixing paint, really mash the paint with your palette knife. A gentle stir is not going to mix up your paint. And you can see that I've got what I call a surprise there. That's dark color that has not been mixed in well enough. So make sure that you don't end up with surprises in your puddle of paint. And I want this a little darker. So I'm going to add another chunk of Payne's gray. Payne's gray is a transparent color, and that's why it takes more Payne's gray than it would ever take of pure black to turn this puddle into a gray color. All right, so we're just mixing up a gray here. This is kind of our warm-up exercise to get you ready to really move some paint tonight. Because if you noticed on the supply list, we don't have any little brushes. We just have 2 big brushes, and that's what we're going to use to paint with tonight. So this is a bold, very gestural style of painting. And it's a lot of fun. And while I think that gray's probably okay for what we're going to do right now. So I'm going to leave that alone, and I'm going to put out just a little smidgen of Dioxazine purple, which is a great violet color, and it's a very, very strong color. So I'm not going to need much of that, but I do want to make a little light purple color. And I was timid there, so I'm going to add a little bit more. We're gonna be mixing a number of different colors tonight, so you're gonna make good friends with your palette knife, not only for mixing paint, but for also painting with it tonight. So those of you that are dreading that, you can start dreading that right now, and that's perfectly fine. But I do want to tell you a little saying that I thought was very appropriate for a painting class, and it is apparently popular with preschool children all over the United States. I did not know that, but I was told it was. So here is the motto for tonight's class. Are you ready? Here we go. You get what you get, and you don't pitch a fit. Okay, so some things are going to turn out exactly the way you like them, and some things are not, but no matter what happens, you're going to love it because you've done it and it's something that you've created yourself. Now, one thing, if you're showing your paintings to someone, please don't ever point out something you consider a flaw in your painting. Just show them your painting and say, look what I painted in class tonight, and wait for the compliments to come. They will. But if somebody is criticizing you, then find another friend to show your artwork to, because nobody needs those kind of critical people in their life. But don't you be the person supplying them with ammunition or saying, oh, I did this wrong or I did that wrong. You didn't do anything wrong. You've just done something and got a little bit different result than what you had anticipated. Okay. So I've got a 1-inch flat brush here, and that's what we're going to start with. The link to the template was on where you registered for the class, where it says what to bring, and then the little arrow says more. You click that more, and at the bottom, oh, somebody's giving it to you. G. Vincent, thank you very much. But anyway, it's at the bottom of the supply list. All right, so everybody, 1, 2, 3, eyes on me. That means I'm painting and you're watching for just a few minutes. All right, so I'm going to scoop up, and I want you to see, I've scooped up a huge glob of gesso on my flat brush. And I'm going to slap this. I want to turn this so you can see. Can you see how much paint I've slopped on there?
We can see it.
Okay, it's a big amount because I don't want you to put a little tiny dab of paint on here and think you're going to get it done. You're not. All right, so I'm just quickly going to brush this white or gesso on the canvas, and the gesso is going to spread out beautifully for me. You're not going to have any trouble getting this to move on the canvas for you. slap, 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 back and forth, putting that white paint on. When you start to run out, pick up some more. And right now, I'm only concerned about the front surface of the canvas. And when you finish painting the painting, you can come back and do the edges. Don't worry about them right now. Now is not the time for that. All right, so my canvas has a liberal thick coat of white paint on it. I'm just going to wipe my brush off, and I'm going to pick up some of that gray color that I have mixed, and I'm going to pat that on and watch what I do. Crisscross, crisscross, crisscross. And you see that that's darker gray there and it gets lighter. I'll wipe my brush off, start here again, and just move this color around, creating variations of tones of gray. I don't want a lot of really choppy brush marks, but some brush marks are going to be just fine. Wipe the brush off. I'm going to pick up some more gray. I'm going to add more over here. If I want to add more, wipe the brush off.
So, Andy, if they don't have gesso, are they just using white paint for the white
I
part?
would recommend that they use just the regular formula of FolkArt. FolkArt Artist Pigment White is going to be too thick to make this background work really easily for them.
Okay.
It will work. They just have to work too hard at it, and I don't want them to do that.
You've got a regular like titanium white or one of those lying
Titanium
around.
white or wicker white or something like that will work just fine.
That would be good.
All right,
Okay.
so I'm just softening this with my brush. Long sweeping strokes. Just softening so that I have some variations in gray and white going on my canvas. This is still plenty wet to work in because we're not dilly-dallying. And I'm just softening this color onto my canvas. Blend, 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 soften, soften, soften. You just want this background to have a pleasing arrangement of gray and white on it. Nothing too fancy. Go ahead, John.
Yeah, just while you're doing that and people can watch, let's just go over quickly again the couple of different mixes you made. The first one was some Payne's gray in your white.
And then the other was some Dioxazine purple in my white.
And that's it. Okay.
Yeah, before we go on into purple, I'm going to reach down here and I'm going to pick up just a minute amount of Payne's gray on my brush that had the dirty brush from the background in it. So I'm creating a darker shade of gray. All right, this is not straight Payne's gray. When I put it on here, that doesn't look black, does it? No, it's just a darker gray. So I'm going to put some of this darker gray on, and then I'm just going to take my brush and just soften some of that in, just creating a little soft gray area. And we're going to soften this in over here. And I'm going to do the same thing one more time. Little Payne's gray in my dirty brush, pat some gray on there and pat a little bit on up here. We're just creating different tones of gray in our background. And you're going to have time to do this. So please don't freak out. I know it's impossible for you all to sit there and just watch, but that's what you should be doing right now. All right, so I'm softening that gray in, and you can still see some brush marks, but overall, it's just a kind of a hazy, cloudy gray background. And that's exactly what we want because we're going to be putting some vibrant pink and purple tulips on here, and then a glass vase that's reflecting and refracting all kinds of colors. All right, so my canvas is still wet because I put on an ample amount of the gesso when we started. Now I'm going to pick up some of the light violet color that we made, and I'm just going to put a little bit of that in here and there and just blend that in with my brush. I'm not rinsing my brush in water. I'm just wiping it on my shop towel when color starts to go where I don't want it to go. So if I'm moving purple where I don't want it to go, I'll wipe my brush and then come back and blend. So I'm going to pick up a little bit more purple, and I'm going to put some over here on the right side. And once again, just this kind of light, feather-light touch, stroking back and forth, crisscrossing, and softening that purple into the background. Now I'm feeling that my background paint is just now starting to get a little bit sticky. So that's my signal that I am just about needing to finish this background up because I don't want my paint to start to dry out on me. Okay, So that's what I have for my background. It is a modeled background, and you cannot detect, I'm sorry, is that helping or hurting?
No, we can see it.
Okay,
You can
can't
lift the
detect.
whole thing up if you want a little more. There we go.
Okay.
Yeah.
What I want you to notice as you're looking at this is there are no really distinctive shapes of anything. I'm seeing that there are a couple of brush marks that are a little bolder than I might like them, but I'm not going to mess with them now. I'm going to leave this alone because, as you can see, there is an awful lot of painting that goes on top of that background. And we've got other colors to still put in the background, so we're not done. But this is our foundation for our painting. Okay, so if you all want to take a deep breath and put out some paint on your palette, now's the time to attack that.
All right. We'll give people a minute or two to get caught up.
That's what I'm going to do, and I'm going to try to turn my clock on to see where we are.
8:17.
Okay, so I'm going to give you probably, a good few minutes, we'll say, to do your background. And if you're asking about drawing the background, what I was going to say is, when you finish your background, if some of you were being naughty and painting along with me, you are welcome to dry your background right now. And I am going to turn my hairdryer on and dry that while I try to read some of your quotes. And the very first step was gesso and nothing. We just covered the canvas with a very generous coat of gesso. So I'm going to be drying this. The canvas is a 9x12 canvas. And I am, for the most part, using FolkArt Pure Artist Pigment paints. And the exception to that is gesso that I'm using in place of any white tonight. Okay, I'm going to dry mine while you all are painting. Marinika, if your canvas is bigger than a 9x12, I don't think you're going to be able to get it done with us in class. So you might want to watch and ask questions while we do this, because a really big canvas, I'm not planning on giving you time to do that. And John, if you're listening, can you come into the studio and help me for just a moment?
Yeah, I can't. I'll be right there. I'm next door, guys, so I got to run in there.
Okay, thank you. I brought that on the floor, and I couldn't get up to get it, I believe. Thank you very much. Perfect. Thank you. Okay, sorry about that. Something had gotten away from me and I couldn't retrieve it. Right, so I'm seeing there are questions about the colors, so we will go over those again for you. I started out with white or gesso, and I made a mixture of gesso plus a little bit of Payne's gray and a mixture of gesso plus a little bit of dioxazine purple. I painted the entire canvas with a very heavy coat of gesso. Then I started adding in my light gray mixture, softened that into the background. Then I picked up a little Payne's gray on my dirty brush and added a couple of areas of darker gray and blend that in. And then added just a little bit of the violet color in here and softened that in as well. And if you were asking about where to get the printed sheet, someone had been kind enough to post the link in the chat. And if you don't have that, then the link is on the Michaels website page. It's where your supply list is. You have to click the down arrow to more, and then the link is right there. So I'm still going to give you another minute because I know getting this background done is always tough. It's tough to get everything set and ready to go, and then to follow the instructions. I understand, and I commend you all for painting along. I honestly don't know if I would be able to paint along with me in a class. So bravo to those that do. I use a shop towel, yes, to wipe my brush on. I get the Scott brand shop towels. I get mine probably at Home Depot, but you can also find them at Lowe's or at some Walmarts or automotive shops. You can order them from Amazon. I like them because they are tough. They don't lint up if you're trying to wipe something down. You don't end up with lint on anything, and they're terribly absorbent. So I love them. So I'm giving you another moment before I talk to you about transferring your design onto the surface. So I think sometimes getting ready.
How is everybody doing with their background? You guys feeling good about this? Feeling good? Yeah? All right.
Okay, I mean, you could send us a thumbs up if you want to.
An SOS.
No SOSs, just some thumbs up.
Just thumbs up. All right.
I'm not sure if Erin is wanting us to stop or what she's wanting us to do. I just saw a hand there, and I don't know if that's the universal signal for stop.
I don't know how to, I don't know what when someone does when they raise their hand. I don't know how to do that.
I don't know either.
So you just have to put it in the chat.
Yes.
All right, but I think we're good.
Okay.
I think you're good to move on. Most people have said they're either just watching or they're good. So let's move on.
All right. So here's the thing. All right. So if you printed out the template, you noticed that it was on 2 sheets. That's done for a specific reason. That is so that you can print it out on a regular home printer that usually has 8.5 by 11 sheets of paper in it, and that's what most people have at home. So we tile the templates for you so that you can print them out at home. So I trace mine onto 1 single sheet of tracing paper because it's easier for me to do that. Then ordinarily, if I am working at home, I would put a little piece of tape in probably a couple of places just to hold my design in place. But tonight, this isn't an intricate design and we're going to do it fast. So I'm just going to hold it in place. But I have here a piece of well-worn graphite paper, and I want to hold it up to the camera so that you can see that this piece of graphite paper has been used and used and used. And let me tell you, this graphite paper still has a lot of life left in it. So you don't need a new piece of graphite paper every time you go to transfer a pattern. So what I always do is I lay my graphite on top of my pattern, and then I just make a mark. And if I can see the mark I've made, then I have the right side of the graphite paper toward the surface. So I'm going to slip that side down. I call that the business side of the graphite underneath my design. And then I use a stylus, which is just a tool that has, it's kind of like a ballpoint pen, but it just has a little ball at the end of it. And it's easier for me to use that than something else. Don't use a pencil and don't use a felt tip pen. All right, so I'm going to take my stylus and I'm just going to go over the design lines. And after I've done one line, I always pick up the tracing and the graphite paper and I check, and you can't see it right now, but the line is transferring. So everything is good to go. So I'm going to continue to transfer, and I do just the main outlines. If you don't have a template or don't want to follow the design that we gave you, you are welcome to take a pencil and sketch your design onto your canvas using a pencil. That's perfectly fine. I think having a template, if you're not confident in your drawing skills, having the template really does kind of let you do the painting without having to worry about things being in the right position or having the right scale to what you're doing. It just makes everything a little easier if someone else has already done the hard work for you. All right, so I just move my graphite paper and continue to trace over my design lines, working neatly and carefully so that everything transfers the way it ought to. And remember, this design is just a guideline. And as one of my former teachers said, don't let your guidelines be your girdles. Just use them for reference and to help you with placement.
See, I told you all you're going to learn something. Don't let your guidelines be your girdles.
Well, they've learned two things tonight, maybe.
They have.
They get what they get and not to pitch a fit.
Yeah.
And now don't let your guidelines be your girdles.
We are chock full of
we are got a little quip for
life
everything,
lessons today.
John. You can imagine the assortment of needlepoint pillows I must have. Yeah, I think sometimes if you have a little quip or a funny saying, it's easier to remember some of these things.
And you can use the same graphite paper over and over again without throwing it out.
Oh, yes. I mean, I've got graphite paper that's probably 15 years
You've been
old.
carrying around that since the late 80s.
Since I was a baby.
Maybe.
Mama never would let me throw out graphite paper. All right, so I've transferred my design and I'm just by lifting it up, I can see if I've missed a line, and I did miss part of that leaf there. So now we have the leaf on, we've got our base, we've got our tulips, our stems. Okay, so we are cooking with gas now. I'll set my stylus aside and we are ready to start mixing some paint for our tulips. So we're going to paint our purple tulips first. So I'm just putting out a little bit more dioxazine purple on my palette. And this color purple that I mixed up is nice. So I'm going to save some of that aside. And we're going to use some of that for highlighting our tulips. And we're going to use it to add to our background. And then I'm going to take some of that color and I'm going to add another chunk of dioxazine purple to it to make a darker purple. This is one of the fun things when you get comfortable with mixing paint. I don't have to go look for a darker shade of purple because I've got a dark purple here on my palette and I've got gesso for white tonight. So I can make any shade of violet that I want to. I'm just adding a little bit more dioxazine purple to my gesso and mixing that up thoroughly because I'm trying to make a nice medium value purple color for my tulips. And oftentimes I'll mix with a brush and other times I'll mix with a palette knife. Tonight, because I'm teaching something and trying to make it a little bit more standard for everyone, I am mixing with a palette knife to make my colors first, just to make it a little easier for everybody so we can come back and revisit some of these colors if we want to. And the fun thing about this painting is where it is right now, I did kind of pink and fuchsia and coral tulips on here. But if you were a person that loved red tulips, you could make your tulips red. You could make your tulips all very pinky colored. You can make your tulips just about any color that you want to. And it will turn out to be a beautiful painting for you. You get to be the gardener.
So Wendy, he is really just working with dioxazine purple, and he's added it. The original light lavender was with just the white gesso, and then he continues to add more dioxazine purple to make this darker one. But it's really just that in white so far.
Yes, and I am, for some reason tonight, being timid with the addition of my dioxazine purple because I'm afraid of getting it too dark. But I'm just going to go ahead and now add a big old chunk to
So
it.
you can
because
always add more, but you can't take it out, right?
That's
Well, I guess you
exactly
could add
right.
more white if you get too carried away.
You can, and then what happens is I end up with a mountain of paint before I get to the right color. And as a general rule of thumb, it's not an absolute, you do want to add your darker color to your lighter color. That will cut down on the amount of paint that you need. Okay, so checking that I don't have surprises in my puddle of paint here. Mix, mix, mix. And we are about ready to paint some purple tulips. All right, so we are going to block these in pretty quickly using our palette knife. So I'm just going to pick up some paint and I'm just going to pat it onto the back side of my palette knife. So I've got a nice amount of paint. Let's see, where's my camera? There we are. All right, so a nice amount of paint on the back side of my palette knife. And we are going to put on a purple tulip right here. So I'm going to start right at the outside edge of my tulip and I'm scraping across, laying it down, and I'm going to turn my canvas around and I'm just going to work right out here at the edge, filling that in, working it back into the center. All right, so that tulip is just about half done. Doesn't take much to do that. And I'm not worried about any of these little fuzzy edges to the outside. I've got what is essentially an egg-shaped flower. And I guarantee you, if you put an egg-shaped flower with broad leaves and a vase, somebody's going to know that you have painted a vase of tulips and they are not going to question you about it. All right, so filling in here and then turning your canvas around so that it's comfortable for you. Just pick up paint as you need it. Going to work to make sure to get that a little bit rounded over there at the edge. And then where it stops at the top of the canvas, we're good there. All right, so look at that. We have 2 tulips almost finished. And you're like, what? Almost finished? And I'm like, yep, almost finished, not quite. So I'm going to put out a little bit of red light on my palette. And I'm going to put out a little pure orange.
What was the first color you put? Red what?
Red light. You could use Christmas red, you could use Naphtha crimson, you can use red light, you could use lipstick red, engine red, cardinal red. You
Some
get the
kind of
idea.
red. And then
Any
the
kind of
orange was
red.
what?
Pure orange. You could also
Red
use,
light and pure orange. I'm putting that in the chat.
okay, you could also use hot saffron, you could use pumpkin. I think there's even a color called tangerine you can use. Any of that's going to be okay. So what I'm going to do real quick is I'm going to take a little bit of white and a little bit of red, and I'm going to make a little bit of a pink color. And I want that pink color not to be that kind of peachy pink. So I'm going to put a little bit of my purple mixture in there and change that more to a mauvey, purpley kind of pink. All right, so once again, I made a pink with some red light and gesso and just add a little bit of my darker purple mixture into it, just to give it a little bit of a, just to change the color a little bit, to make it a little bit more compatible with purple. All right, so here's the fun stuff. I'm going into my light purple mix that we used on the background. I'm patting some onto my palette knife. Don't need a ton, but I've got some on there. And I'm going to divide this tulip in half and give it a center division to separate some petals. All right, so I just stroke that color on and spread that color over to the right side of my tulip. And if I'm not in love with that, I'm not going to pitch a fit, but I am just going to wipe my palette knife off, nothing on it. And I'm just going to put my palette knife back down and just kind of smooth that out a little bit. And I'm going to do the same thing on this tulip up here. Boom, done. I'm going to force myself to leave that alone.
Mm-hmm. So
Now,
you're not using the new color you just made. You're going back to that original light purple
this
that
was
you
the
had.
original light purple. Now I'm going to pick up this pink color that I just made because it's a beautiful color and it needs to be given a little bit of love. And I'm just going to start like in the middle of this tulip, and I'm just going to smear a little of that pinky color on there. And let me bring this up for a super close up. So you can see now that tulip has a darker purple on it, it's got a lighter purple on it, and it's got a pink on it. Not difficult. Okay. Now I am going to pick up a paintbrush. I know I probably shouldn't do this soon, but I am. So I'm going to pick up a paintbrush, and I'm going to pick up some of my lighter purple and some of my darker purple just together on the brush. I'm not mixing the two colors together. I'm going to use more of the lighter purple than the darker. And I'm going to add a little area right in here next to this tulip and above the one that we haven't painted yet. And do you see how I'm just adding a little bit of purple to the background? Okay, and bring that up so the camera can see it up close. There's not much to it. Let me turn the canvas. I'm going to turn it right side up so you can see exactly where I've put this. Okay. Oh, and for some, well, I don't know. Oh, I stuck my finger right in my flower. I got to go fix that. Hang on. All right. So right in here, there's the tulip we haven't painted yet. We just painted this purple one. And now I've brushed a little bit of light purple into my background. Does everybody see that?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So what I'm going to do next, I'm going to fix the tulip that I just stuck my thumb in. And by fixing that, I mean, I'm going to pick up some paint on my palette knife and just stroke that back on. All right, so that's how I fixed that at the back. Right, put my thumb right in it there. All right, so now we've got this area of purple that we've added into the back. And so I'm going to take that pink color that I made, and I'm just going to add some white to it, or some gesso to it, to make it a little bit lighter pink. And I'm not worried too much about how this color looks. As long as it's a little bit lighter, it's going to be great. So then I'm going to dash a little bit of that on in the background. I'm going to wipe my palette knife off. And I'm going to take some of the original pink color we made, and I'm going to dab a little bit of that on in there. Not too much, not covering everything up. All right, so I scrubbed that around a little bit and softened it in with my palette knife. And so this is what we've got there in the background now. So it's pretty nondescript. And whoever's looking at this is going to have to figure out for themselves if it is another tulip back there or exactly what it is. We don't know, and we're not really worried about it. Okay, we're on to our 3 pink peach tulips. So once again, we're going to mix up some colors. So I'm going to take some gesso and clean my palette knife off. And I'm going to add some of my red light to that, or whatever red you happen to be using. And then I'm going to add just a little bit of dioxazine purple to that, which is going to make that, it's going to change the kind of the, let's see how I'm going to say this. It's going to take away some of that Valentine pink color and make it a little funkier color that's got just a little bit of a purple cast to it. So I'm just going to add a little bit more purple in there just because I think that's going to make it better. Okay, this is a little bit lighter than I wanted it, but that's okay. I'm going to save part of this, and I'm going to make a darker color now. So here we have gesso plus red light plus dioxazine purple. I've divided that into 2 puddles. I'm going to add more red and purple to this puddle here. So another bit of red. I'm making a darker purpley pink color now.
And y'all can see the extended open time that these pure pigments have. You see how Andy's still able to work and with these paints after they've been out for 15, 20 minutes or however long we've been going.
Yeah,
it's moving around nicely. So
they're not beginning to dry.
that's one of the nice things about these.
Yeah, they are great paints to work with. I love using them. Plenty of time to get into trouble with your paint. All right, so once again, I'm just not exactly sure that I love that color. So I'm going to go ahead and add a little bit more red and a little bit more purple to it. And this, you can play with this stuff as much as you want to get exactly the shade that you want to. You may want to try a different red. You could use alizarin crimson. You could use FolkArt berry wine. You could use true burgundy. You could use any sort of red that you wanted to make yourself a pink color. And then add a little bit of dioxazine purple to it to change that up a little bit. Okay, I'm liking this color a little bit better now. All right, so we are going to paint these pinkish tulips on here in 2 shakes of a lamb's tail. No, we're not. I'm going to make one more color mixture before we dive into that. Sorry, get you all revved up. So I've got my gesso there, and I'm going to add a bit of pure orange to that to make a nice light, what I'm going to call like an orange sherbet color. And I think I've got this just about where I need it to be with the first edition of orange, but who knows? Never satisfied with things the way they are. We'll add just a little bit more orange to this. And I know some of you don't love mixing colors, and I apologize, but it's the best exercise you can get to really familiarize yourself with what your paint is capable of doing. It really does let you see all the subtle tints, tones, and shades that you can make. All right, so before we paint, I'm going to just go over these colors one more time so that you're not confused, or if you are confused, we'll clarify things. So we had a pink color that was made with red light, gesso, and a little dioxazine purple. I took that color, divided it, and in the second pile added more red light and more dioxazine purple to it until I got the color the way I wanted it. Then I made a sherbet color with gesso plus pure orange.
People are impressed with your long sleeves, Andy, that you're not getting yourself all up in your palette with it.
Well, it happens occasionally, but after, 35, 40 years of painting, you learn where paint is and you try to stay out of it. They too can stay out of their paint if they try. All right, so I'm going to pick up a little paint on the back side of my palette knife, and I'm going to just go ahead and start down here at this bottom tulip there. And as you guessed it, I'm going to run my palette knife along the edge and then just smooth that color into the inside of the tulip. If you run out of paint, like, it's so hard to show you what's on my palette knife. There's not any paint left on the back of it. And so I'm going to pick up a little bit more paint so that I can easily kind of fill in that tulip. This stuff doesn't always have to be done in just one swipe of the palette knife. You can, in fact, play with it a little bit, but the problem is you don't want to play in it so much that you lose any sense of spontaneity that you had. You want your palette knife work to look confident, as though you are the one in control of what's happening on your tulip. And I know somebody just laughed and like, I don't control my tulip at all. Well, you'll learn how to do that.
You show that palette knife who's boss.
Well, exactly. I mean, the palette knife is just a tool like a paintbrush is. And every one of you has learned how to manipulate a paintbrush to get the desired effect. And you can do the same thing with a palette knife. And you're asking about the palette pad. It is a wax coated palette and it does come on a pad. They come in different sizes, usually a 9x12, a 12x16. And I happen to have the giant palette here, which is 18x24, and I love it. Love the big palette. All right, so here we are, coming in here, painting our tulip right next to or over that other tulip there, letting that side come down, filling in that petal, feeling confident, turning it around so that it's comfortable for me to work. And I just want to make sure that I fill in and get the bottom lip, the bottom of this tulip petal nicely rounded. And I believe John's wife is from the Netherlands, is she not?
Yes, she is. Well, her family is. She's from Canada, but her parents are Dutch, and all of her cousins and her grandparents and all that are still there.
Okay. Well, I've been to the Netherlands many times, and I've taught over there several times. And I was teaching there one time, and the woman who was in charge of my workshop over there, she was talking to me about all of the tulips that bloom, and that's, you know, what all the tourists come to see, and they love all that stuff. And then it's there for a short time, and then they come and cut all the heads off the tulips so the bulbs have more energy or life or whatever. And I laughed at her and I said, I've never seen a tulip bloom in Holland. Every time I come, it is the winter and everything is brown.
Yes,
So,
and cold.
yes, but it's a fabulous country, but I've just never seen all of the beautiful
I think it's
tulips.
happening right now, as a matter of fact. I mean, not that any of us are going to jump on a plane and dart over to Holland, but just saying, if you look on the internet, you can probably see the pictures of it, because I think this is the time of year when it happens.
Well, it's absolutely spectacular when you can see it. And the pictures I've seen have been fascinating. But like I said, I always tend to go in the winter, and there is no, there are no tulips everywhere. And I haven't been there in enough winter for the canals to freeze over so that we could go skating on the canals. All right. So probably seeing me skate down a canal is probably not what John is envisioning as a traditional Dutch would look like. I would look like all of the Haydns on skates. All right, so I've got now my lighter pink color. Remember, we started here with this darker mixture, and then I've got now the lighter mixture on my palette knife. Not too much paint, and I'm going to paint a forward petal on this tulip, starting here in the center and stroking out toward the outside edge. Ran out of paint, no problem, pick up a little bit more and stroke that on and just kind of soften it out a little bit. Going to move on to another tulip, and we're going to stroke on a lighter petal here, stroking this on. I'm just stroking this from this outside edge. And obviously I'm not worrying too much about how all of this is going to look, because I know that when you all looked at the painting, you knew it was a painting of tulips, and I did not have to write home about it. People who look at paintings see things pretty quickly and pretty easily. But we're not done with those tulips yet. No, we're about to put some orange on them. And now I'm looking at my orange color and I don't like it anymore. So before I put it on there, I'm going to add some more orange to it.
There you go. Hey, Andy, how does this palette paper compare to using a traditional, like, I don't know, glass palette or wooden palette or whatever palettes are made of? Because somebody was asking about that.
Okay, a glass palette is fine to work on, except you have to clean it up. You probably should let your acrylic paint dry on it, and then you take a razor and scrape all of that paint off, and then clean it up with glass cleaner and all of that stuff, which takes time and is a problem. A wooden palette, you scrape all the paint off while it's wet, and then you would take water on a rag, rub the palette, and then you just kind of are smearing this paint all over. And your palette will end up being kind of a grayish brown color over time, which is what you tend to work on, is just this layer of dried paint that's kind of been rubbed into the canvas. And that's okay. When I'm done painting, all I need to do is to pick up, and of course I can't do it right now for anything, pick up my sheet of palette paper, fold it over on itself, toss it in the garbage, and I'm done. Love the wax coated
So
palette.
it's really just a convenience.
It's just a convenience. And yeah, I mean, I like it much better than a styrofoam plate. A styrofoam plate doesn't really give me enough room to work on it. And, you know, plus they're, you know, supposedly not very good for our environment. So I just tend to, and I've used a wax palette for many, many years and just have never really felt the need for anything else. All right, folks, here we go. I've made my sherbet color a little bit darker because I think that's going to be more attractive on my painting. And look, I'm just going to come back and I'm going to put some orange on here. If that wasn't orange enough, watch. I can pick up some more orange on my palette knife. Just do a quick mix here. And then I could come down there and put, do you see I put a different color orange on? Boom, boom, 2 different colors of oranges. It's beautiful on the canvas. This stuff is fun and you can do it and you can have fun doing it. Remember, do not let your guidelines be your girdles. All right, so I'm going to put out just for fun, and I'm probably sure I did this on my other painting, but I'm going to put out some yellow light on my palette. Get the paint down to the opening of the bottle and put out some yellow light. It's a lot of effort for not much paint there, but I'm going to take some of this yellow light and I'm just going to mix it into some of that orange color that I just made, making a whole different color of orange. And we're going to put this on our tulips in a couple of different places. So right down here again, I'm going to put a little, ooh, look at how that worked. I'm super excited about that. The orange and the yellow orange kind of mixed together right there. That's incredibly pretty. And I didn't really have to spend a lot of effort to do that. So you can get some really fun little color plays that happen that are unplanned, yet they work out beautifully. Okay, so there's some of that lighter yellow on the tulip up there. And I'm going to soften that in with some of this other peach color that I've made. I was hoping that lightning would strike twice. It did not, but you never know. So we just put a little bit of that on there. And again, we've got this kind of orange stuff happening on top of the pinks, which is a lot of fun. And you can play with these tulips. Don't want you to play with them too much because you've got other things to do, but you can, you know, if I wanted to come over here on this particular tulip and I wanted to put some purple over here on what I would say is a little bit more of a shadow side, I'm just going to pick up some more dioxazine purple and I'm just going to make a darker shade of purple. And what I'm attempting to show you now is that you can change things up to suit you. So I wanted to put some darker purple on that side. So I'm just mixing up a little bit of darker purple. You can see this is darker than that mix I made there. And I don't know, somebody just typed in that Andy is the best.
Andy is the best.
Well, I think that's a very sweet compliment and I appreciate it. I'm pretty sure that I'm confusing some people no end right now because this isn't a do this, do that, do this, do that painting. But I want you to see what I can do here. And if I don't like it, I can change it. So I'm just going to add some purple over here to this side of the tulip. And if that looks too stark or too strong, I'm just going to come back in with the color that I put down first. And I'm just going to soften that in. So I've got some cool looking blending going on here. Let's see.
Yeah.
Okay, so you could see that we've got some interesting stuff going on there. But we need to do some leaves and some stems before we get into our vase and have some fun there. All right, so I'm going to put out some Sap Green on my palette. And Sap Green is a really nice, deep, transparent green color. It leans more toward the yellow side than it does to the blue side. So Sap Green rather than something like Viridian. Viridian is going to be a little too too yellow green and too garish for what we've got going on here. All right, so I'm
What
going
did
to
you just lay down after the sap green? I apologize.
I haven't said anything. I just put down some Payne's gray.
Okay.
So I'm going to take some of my sap green and I'm going to add a chunk of Payne's gray. I know I didn't clean my palette knife off. Sorry for you eagle-eyed viewers. I was just trying to save a minute because I know we're running late already. And I don't know how late we're running, John.
We are, well, we're about 3 minutes left before the hour, but
Okay.
you
Well,
know, it's
yeah, I'm sorry. We're going to be a little bit long tonight.
gonna be a
folks.
little bit long tonight. That's okay.
I would like to blame it on the information that we had to give at the beginning of the class.
That's right. And they
unfortunately-
blathered on for like 20 minutes at the beginning, and then it caused us to be late.
That is not the case, but that's what I'd like
Hey,
to blame it
guys.
on. No, she did a great job with all of that information. And, you know, sometimes you just can't do a painting in an hour. You know, I always think it's more fun to paint than it is to race the clock.
Yes. I think a lot of folks are just watching and enjoying, and they will be able to go back. And when they do this, when you do it in your own time, where you're pausing to catch up, it'll probably take you much longer than an hour. So that's all good.
Yeah, it does. All right, so I'm going to take my smaller brush now. The one I grabbed is a 3/4 inch brush. It doesn't matter. You just do not use a little brush. That's the worst thing you could do, is to grab a small brush for this. All right, so I'm going to paint in my big tulip leaves with this sap green and Payne's gray mixture. And I want you to see, I put the tip of the handle of my brush in the palm of my hand. Then I grab the brush. So I'm holding the brush as far back as I possibly can. If you hold the brush like a pencil, you will be painting very, very tightly rendered leaves. And that is absolutely what we are not after tonight. All right, so I'm just applying this color to the leaves, and I'm just turning my canvas around so that it's easier for me to see what I'm doing and to paint right up next to those tulips. I don't want you to leave a halo around those tulips. Let your leaf color come right up to them. And then I'm filling in the outside edges first. And then I'm just going to cover the inside with a very sparse amount of paint so that it's not solid dark. I'm going to paint in this leaf over here. Same way. You don't need a ton of paint on these leaves. We're going to let some of that background color work for us, or work to our advantage. Right up next to that tulip, right next to that stem, and then just fill in quickly and easily. Try not to use too much paint. So you really don't need that much paint on these leaves. We got a lot of stuff to pile on top of them, so we don't need a bunch of paint underneath that's wet. And I'm trying to stay out of the stem a little bit, but if I get some paint in the stem, that's okay too. It is not time to freak out. Don't think you've ruined it or done something wrong. Most of the time, almost any problem with a painting can be corrected. Sometimes it takes some effort to do that, but your paintings are not always ruined. If you've done just one little thing wrong, your painting's not ruined. You can go back and paint over it, probably pretty easy to correct. Oh, if you're still painting the background, don't try to catch up. Just enjoy the ride from this point on, because you won't. I don't think, I mean, I couldn't catch up to me.
No, we're not. If we're on the background, then you're going to want to tune back in.
Yeah. Don't drive yourself crazy. And there's nothing wrong with still being on the background, but just don't try to drive yourself crazy catching up with an hour's worth of instruction that you just can't do. All right, so I'm going to paint in this large leaf that is tipping down in front of the vase. And I want you all to realize that most of the time when an artist paints tulips, they take a tremendous amount of artistic license with the shape of the flowers and how the leaves are arranged. Because tulip leaves generally are kind of straight up and down, and then they have some curly bits on the edges curl around a little bit, but they are not graceful, sweeping, turning leaves by any stretch of the imagination. So artists generally help them along by just painting the leaves in a much more artistic fashion. So hopefully you do not have a tulip farmer looking at what you're doing who will be criticizing that those leaves don't bend like that.
Yeah. I don't think a lot of people know any tulip farmers.
No, but if you've got a lot of big movie buffs out there, and I can't remember what streaming service it was on, so forgive me, but there is a movie called The Tulip Wars, and it is about the Dutch tulip market and how bizarre it got with people spending fortunes on a tulip bulb that may or may not turn out to be anything. And the movie, I hate to say it, was extremely slow paced and not worth the time for it. All right, now I'm going to begin to highlight this leaf a little bit. I've just wiped my brush out and I'm picking up some yellow light just on my brush. These leaves may or may not be dry. We're going to find out soon enough. All right, and I'm just going to start stroking some of this light color on from the outside or the tip of the leaf down. And I'm just going to kind of scrub this in using a sawing zigzag back and forth motion. Saw, saw, saw. Not picking up any more color, but you can see how I highlighted and blended that leaf all at once. See, I just don't seem to be getting as much light on this as I want them to see, because that's pretty light and it's just not showing up that bright. But trust me, that's very light out there. All right, so I'm going to wipe my brush off. I'm going to pick up a little bit of that yellow light again, and I'm going to do the same thing over on this leaf. Start at the tip and just seesaw back and forth, putting this light color on. And then I'm just going to pat and pull and just soften some of this light yellow on. This paint is a little bit sticky, and so you're going to have to work to blend it in, but that's okay. You can do it. And then down here, again, start at the end, seesawing it. Uh-oh, some cyber attack has shut down something. I hope it's not our Zoom class.
Well, no, it is not. It was the one of, the gas pipeline thing that's been shut down for a couple of days. But
okay, all right. So thanks for that.
We're off topic, but yeah.
Yeah, if I was going to say if a cyber attack had happened during my painting class, I was going to feel like I had really arrived on the world stage.
But
so I'm
it's not good if the gas stations start to shut down.
No, it's not good. All right, so I'm scrubbing some of this yellow on, and it's I'm kind of picking up some paint, but it's making my leaf look a lot lighter and brighter.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so again, I'm pretty sure that my leaf looks much lighter in person than it's coming across on camera, but we are going to do that again, just because I want it to show up as light as I can for you. So once again, I just wiped my brush off on my shop towel, picking up some yellow light, and I am just kind of scribbling this on using the edge of my brush, and then just letting that yellow kind of fade off into a lighter green and then into some darker green. So I think you can kind of see that a little bit better this time. All right, let's get some palette knife highlighting going on our leaves, and then we will turn our attention to our vase, which will be fun. All right, so I'm going to take some of my Sap Green and I'm going to mix some yellow light into that. Mix, mix, mix. And then I'm going to take some of my gesso and mix into that, making a nice light green. Kind of looks like a little bit of an after dinner mint green. Like one of those Andes mints. No affiliation. All right, and then I'm going to wipe my palette knife again because I always like to start with a clean palette knife. And I'm going to take a little paint on the back side of my palette knife, and I'm just going to lay on a bit of a bright highlight. Oh, that's looking so good. Loving the way that's turning out there. And I'll hold this up to the camera so you can see just how nice this is looking as I'm getting that nice bright highlight on there. All right, so up to the camera for a close-up so you can see all of that beautiful highlighting going on there.
How did you make this color again? This was what?
This was Sap Green, yellow light, and gesso.
There we go.
Okay, and I'm going to do the same thing up here on this tall leaf. I'm going to lay on some of this nice light color, trying to make sure that you all can see it on camera as I do it. Remember, you don't have to have a ton of paint on your palette knife. You can always come back and put a little bit more on, and you can kind of smear and spread it around. Just think of this as the most perfect bagel, and your green color is your favorite smear of cream cheese on it, and just trowel that on. And you'll get this beautiful effect of this kind of dappled highlighting on there. And it's very simple to do. And when people look at a painting that's been done like this, they absolutely are, they just flip out for this because it looks so different and so unusual. And yet, you know, it's super simple. All right, so taking that same green again, and we're going to put a little bit out here on this leaf. And we're going to put it right out there and let it fade back in. And again, I'm not worrying about covering up that stem, but I do want to get some highlight going further back on the leaf. Okay, now here's the fun part. I've got nothing over here underneath my tulip or into the top of my vase. So I'm going to just assume that whoever has put this floral arrangement together probably had some extra leaves in mind. So I'm just scuffing on some of this green. I'm not covering it completely, but if some of it happened to get onto my leaf right there, I'm not going to be upset about that at all. And if some of it just happened to ease up onto my tulip as I force it to go up there, that's not going to bother me either. So just getting a little bit of green into this area of the vase. And because some green is going to be reflected down in our vase, I'm just going to lighten this color with a little gesso right here. Not doing anything that you're not seeing. And I'm going to take some of this really, really light green and just put some of that in here in the vase. It's not really any particular size or shape or anything, just putting some green down in there because there would be green inside the vase. And we have to think about that. And this, called this painting a kaleidoscope because there are all sorts of bits of color. And so I'm just going to put a little bit more of that light green right over here in the vase, just troweling it on. I'm also going to take this lighter color. Remember, it was my sap green plus yellow light, and then I just added a little gesso to it to lighten it up a little bit. And I'm going to come back to my leaves, and I'm just going to put a little bit of this brighter highlight on. So you could see now where I've got one shade of green and then another lighter shade going on. And I am just carrying that down so you can see I didn't leave it just like it was. Gonna do the same thing on this leaf. Lighter green going right on top. It doesn't matter if that color underneath is sticky. This is just gonna catch on the edge and float on beautifully. And some of you I know are loving this, and secretly some of you are swearing under your breath that you hate that palette knife. All right, so I'm gonna take a little bit more. I know what's going on out there, and you're all
Palette knife causes much agita among the crowd, but
Yes,
once they have fun with it, then they begin to like it. Like Laura just said, the more I play with my palette knife, the better I like it.
exactly. And you know, there's really no reason to, and it's, I trust me, it's easier for a teacher to say than it is for a student to do. But just to have fun with this, and you know, one of my art teachers, I was complaining about using a lot of canvases, and this was getting expensive, and you know, the normal stuff. And she looked at me and she said, "You are going to leave miles of ugly canvases behind you before you do a good painting." And I thought to myself, okay, well, that makes sense. And you're successful, and obviously you've been down that same road. So I just, you know, took it to heart that there are going to be a lot of ugly paintings that I have to get through, and you'll do a good one. So every now and then, you know, something of mine doesn't see the light of day, and nobody ever gets to see it. And so you all think I do just beautiful paintings all the time. Trust me, there are some horrendously bad paintings lurking out there that I hope no one ever sees. But every now and then I do something that I really like or that I think is good. And so it makes it all worthwhile. So we're putting, you know, sometimes you just have to chalk it up to, well, that's one of the paintings that isn't going to hang on the wall. Set it aside. Don't let it be the last painting you do. All right, so I put Prussian blue out on my palette, and I am finally out of gesso. The first squirt that I put out a few minutes ago has finally been used up. So I'm going to put out another squirt of gesso. And yes, I probably put out more paint than you all do, but I just keep it moving, or keep using it or putting it out there so it's good to use and isn't dried out. So I'm going to now make a light blue color. We're once again going to mix a little bit. So a little bit of Prussian blue into some white, and you will see what a really intense color Prussian blue is, because just a little tiny dab of that has turned this whole puddle of gesso into a very, very bright blue color. And that's not such a bad thing. It's not really the color I want to be dominant in my painting, because everything else that I've mixed up tonight has been somewhat subdued. So I have, I'm going to show you what I'm going to do with that. Thank you. Okay. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to put a little bit of this on the canvas just to show you, and then we're going to alter this, and you're going to see what I like a lot better. But I'm going to put a little bit of this blue down in my vase, because a vase would probably have some water in it. So we're just going to imagine that that's some blue water, some very, very blue water. It's as though you're in the South Seas. All right, so I'm going to put a little bit of blue down here right next to the vase. The only thing on this painting that I'm concerned about the shape of at all is probably this vase. And I based this painting on one of those very, very cheap floral bubble vases. All right, so just making sure that that edge is nicely rounded. And then I'm going to put a little blue next to that leaf there, and maybe just a little bit right up there. Did you see what I did? Just slung a little bit of that blue up there. And because I've got some blue up there, I need to put that somewhere else. So I've just picked up a little gesso, a little bit of blue. And I'm hoping that by now you're starting to pick up on the little secret tonight, is that you can instantly alter the color of something just by changing its value. So I started out with a really intense blue, and now I've lightened that blue so it isn't so obnoxious anymore. So I'm just going to put a little bit of this lighter blue right in here. We're going to put some more stuff on top of that, and I'm just going to hit a little bit right in here. over that blue and bring some of that down here into the vase. So again, this is just Prussian blue, but this time I've added more gesso to the mix. I'm just basically cleaning off my palette knife here and just adding some little bits of color. See if I take something in between there. So add a little bit of my darker blue back into that lighter blue I just had on there. And let's just add a little bit of that different shade of blue right there. And maybe, oh, it doesn't really matter. I'll just put a little bit down this corner of the canvas and then here at the bottom edge. And then I'll soften that in. And we'll probably do something else with that in just a moment. But just getting some color on there. This is about the time that Bob Ross would tell you, get your own little arrangement. Make it like you want to. All right, so we've got some different colored blues going on. I've added some up there, a little bit in here. And since I've got some blues going on there, it, of course, as you all are thinking, it is time for some purple. So I'm going to take some of that light violet color that we had been using, and I'm going to put a little bit of that down here in the vase. And I'm just going to let that color feather out or skid or skip or however you want to call it over some of these other colors. And I'm going to put a little bit of that up here where we had some purple. And I'll put a little bit down here, just adding some interest. There isn't actually any particular way that we should or shouldn't have these colors appearing on our painting. You can add just about any color anywhere you want to. So I'm going to take some of our darker purple that we undercoated our tulips with. And here in the vase, I added this light bit of purple here. So look, I'm going to come and I'm going to put just a mark of dark purple there. It doesn't signify anything. I've got a friend who every time they look at one of my paintings, they'll ask about something. Like I'm going to show you something I'm going to do right now. I'm going to take some of that peachy orange color that we made. I'm going to take most of it off my palette knife, but I'm going to put an orange dab right here in the middle of this greenery, just like that. Okay, and my friend would look at this painting and go, what's that orange there supposed to be? And I always look at them and I said, that's just something I put there to bother you. Because, you know, it's not really supposed to be anything. It doesn't have to be anything. It's just a piece of color. All right, so I am going to let us use our 3/4 inch brush, and I'm going to brush mix a little bit darker blue. So I'm going to take my Prussian blue and gesso mixture, and add a little bit more Prussian blue to this, and a little bit of yellow light. So it's gesso, Prussian blue, and yellow light. And you can see that it's a nice little aqua color. We don't have any aqua in here yet, but I am going to put a little bit of this right here at the top of the vase at that edge. And I'm also going to put a little bit underneath the rim of the vase, and then just connect by dabbing some and laying a brush mark of that color on there. So we're going to come over here to this side of the leaf, and I'm going to just place some of this darker aqua right next to the leaf shape. And I can cut in and I could change the shape of that leaf if I want to make that leaf have like a little jaggedy shape to it that gives it a little bit more interest to it. See that zigzag that's there now? And then I'm just going to pull that color down a little bit, not filling in all of this area, because I'm just going to take my dirty aqua brush into some purple. So making, again, a different color here. And I'm going to add a couple of marks of this kind of gray, blue purple color. And I'm just going to come right on the edges of that leaf. This color isn't as bright as some of the other colors, so we can dab or make a brush mark of that color on there if we want to.
Yes.
Okay, so you could see that.
Andy, while you're doing this and you're just adding these little bits of color, so a couple of people were discussing back from the beginning why you chose gesso instead of just a white paint. What was it really just the
Because
consistency to fill the canvas or what?
Gesso is a very, very matte finish paint, and it's also very fluid, and it's just a cool product to use. And so I thought on something like this, we would just go ahead and use the Gesso because it is more fluid than the Pure Artist Pigment paints. And I didn't want people to have trouble distributing their paint on the whole canvas. So mainly for ease of use, ease of operation is why we went with that color.
There you
Just
go.
easy to put that color on. All right, now I've added some white to that duller blue color, and I've added a brush stroke of it there, added another stroke of it here. I'm going to pick up, without cleaning my brush off, some of this light peach color, and I'm going to add a little bit of that right there. I'm going to add some marks of this peach color. I'm just going to lay this on in kind of like a little vertical mark here. So you could see that little stripe of peach. Then I'm going to take the darker color, still not wiping my brush off, just picking up more paint so that I'm creating these really beautiful tones of color. And I'm going to just pull a little bit of a straight line straight down the canvas here. Not every little mark that I make is the same width, but you end up with these kind of these little vertical shapes that are kind of a nice foil to all of the kind of slip slap color combinations that have gone on. This is some of the stuff that you just learn from doing lots of paintings. And I'm going to carry that up over the rim of the vase so that we break that line up. And again, it's just a vertical line of color. It doesn't really mean anything, or I'm not trying to hide anything with it. It's just a little line of subtle color on there. And I will say that to make a painting kind of fun, you sometimes need to add what I would call a rogue color. So I'm going to put out a little bit more pure orange, and that color is pretty vivid. So I'm going to wipe my brush off for this. And I'm going to pick up some pure orange, which is going to be intensely bright orange. And I'm just going to put a little mark in a place on my canvas to really kind of call attention to it. So right up here, I'm just going to put in one brush mark, and you see that very, very vivid kind of red-orange color standing out there. That's kind of going to be my little piece of rogue color on this painting, and I'm just laying a little bit more orange on there so it's super vivid there. And just adding that, and I'm not going to add that color anywhere else. I just want that one little dab of color to really stand out on its own. Now, we've got tulips hanging out there that aren't connected to anything, and we simply cannot have that. So we're about to connect our leaves or tulips to our painting, and I'm going to take my brush. I wiped it out. I've picked up some sap green and some yellow light. I could go back into that mixture that had a little bit of gesso in it. Still kind of wet over here. And I'm going to paint in the stems, but I'm not going to paint them in going lengthwise. I'm going to paint them in going across the stem, so that each time I put my brush down, I'm making my stem a little bit longer. Okay, it's going to make my stems look a little bit different than they would if I painted them, you know, stroking in the two sides. It's going to be a little bit.
Can you move up a little? Can you just put a little bit farther away? No, I mean like away from your body a little, because you're just getting off the bottom of the screen. There we go.
Okay, here we go. So now I've got to watch that I'm sticking the corner.
Now you're gonna get your sleeves in your paint, just like they told you.
Yeah, I'm gonna get the corner of the canvas in the paint, that's for sure. All right, but just paint that in, and you see how easy that color is going on there. If you run out of paint, for heaven's sake, pick up some more. Don't fight putting paint on your canvas. We are not spending an eternity painting these stems on our painting. We're just stroking these stems on using our flat brush to do it. And you can go from both sides. This also will create some areas that don't really have much paint on it, and it'll look like these stems have a little bit of highlighting going on already, but we're going to shade our stems. Now watch carefully. I've got a brush. Let's see where we can see our brush.
You're good right there.
Okay, so the brush has a little bit of paint all over it. Everybody see that? Now watch, I'm going to come over here to my palette and I'm going to stick just a little portion of the brush into that dark color. I think you can see that.
We can see that.
Okay, all right, so now I've done that, just checking on my palette, what I've got on my brush. So there's a dark and a light portion. So right underneath the tulip, I'm going to dab some of this dark color on, and I'm not working it to death. Dab, dab, got some dark color on there. That's all I need. Make sure I got just a little dark color on that edge of the brush. Dark color, dab, dab, dark color, dab, dab. Over here, dark color, dab, dab, dab. Okay, that's not difficult to do. All right, so I am going to now wipe my brush off and I'm going to pick up some light color. What is light color? It's the same green that we used before, plus I'm picking up a little bit more gesso. Mix, mix, mix. Just on my brush, not too much paint. Again, holding the brush, putting the tip of the handle in my palm, gripping the brush. And we are going to put on a little highlight on our stems. Highlight, highlight, highlight. This is again going across the stem. I'm not blending lengthwise on the stem at all. I'm really putting this on so that where the stem crosses over the leaf, you see that highlight there, really establishes where the leaf or where the stem is going in the painting. A little highlight there, and just for fun, a little bit of highlighting out here. Okay, now I'm going to look at my painting and I'm going to tell you there are two things that we're going to do. We're going to put a little bit more color on our painting, and then I forgot to grab a pencil, but that's perfectly okay. So at this point, you can dry your painting and pretend that the end of my paintbrush is a pencil. A number 2 pencil is perfectly fine for this. I just went and just kind of sketched along the top and the bottom of the rim of the vase, and then a broken line just over here on the sides, just to really define the shape and the edge of that vase. And if you want to, you could put a little pencil line here and there, very broken line, just to accent the exterior of a few little places on your painting. Don't outline everything with the pencil, just do a few little marks here and there, and then a little bit heavier to outline the vase. But I'm taking my brush now, and I'm going to pick up some of my lighter purple color. This paint's still wet, ladies and gentlemen, if you're out there. So I'm now going to take this color and I'm just going to lay some right on over that stem and leaf. Just put the brush down and drag it. I'm going to take that same purple color and I'm going to put a little bit right here in the vase. Just touch it on and drag it. Looking to see where it needs a little bit more color. So we're going to put a little bit of purple right up there and drag that color on. I'm going to take some of my darker purple, not too much on the brush. These are just like the little flecks of the colors in a kaleidoscope. A little bit of purple dragged on right there. Maybe a little bit of purple right out there. Just adding some bits of color. If that looks too strong to you, wipe your brush off, pick up some of the lighter purple color, or even some of the background gray color. You could do that. That color is still wet on my palette. So I could come back over that and soften that color, and that's just absolutely going to disappear when it dries because it's similar to the background color. All right, just looking to see what else I need. I probably need to add a little bit of a different green color inside the vase where everything seems to be coming together there. So wipe my brush, pick up my Sap Green and Payne's Gray mixture. Just pick that up on my brush, and I'm just going to lay that on here and drag a little bit of dark color on there. And that really helps to define kind of the focal point of this arrangement. So watch what I'm going to do to emphasize that even more. I'm going to come on this side of this stem, set my brush down and pull a little bit of dark, super dark color on. Just making that stem join that leaf right down there. All right, now I'm just messing around here a little bit. I'm going to just, there we go. And I don't want to put too much more of this dark color on, but just like you all, I can't leave well enough alone sometimes. So I'm just going to put a little bit of dark green right there. And I'm going to force myself. This is the part of a painting where you can get too much on there. Oh, I changed to the brush so that I could make a different sort of mark. A brush mark looks very, very different than a palette knife mark. And I wanted my canvas to have more than one kind of mark on it. So that's why I switched to the brush here at the end. Okay, what I was saying there before I read that little comment, you don't want this painting to break apart into nothing but little dabs of color that don't mean anything. So once you've established your big tulips, your leaves, your stems, and you've got some little chunks of color going on in the vase. Oh, I have forgotten one thing that we will do. Look at it, and if you don't think it really needs something, then don't put something there. Better to leave it undone than to overdo. But one thing we have to do is to put a nice pure white highlight on our vase. So I'm going to pick up my palette knife with some gesso on it, and I'm just going to come right here and I'm going to lay on a beautiful, nice white highlight. And while that looks like a palette knife mark, it's not exactly what I was hoping for. So I'm just going to mess in it just a little tiny bit to distribute that a little bit so it isn't quite such a triangular shape. Listen, I'm far from a one-shot wonder here with this stuff. And oftentimes I'll mess with it until I have really made a mess of something. Okay, but now I have a great, nice bright highlight on it. And I want you to know there is no pure white anywhere else on the canvas. All that background has some gray in it. So if I were to put a dab of white out there on the canvas, this would look very different because this is the only pure white we have on our painting. All right, so that's basically how we arrived at our summer kaleidoscope. So I know we only used a couple of brushes and our palette knife tonight, and we didn't use that many colors, but look at my palette. I've got so many different shades of colors, and I'm hoping that I haven't confused you tonight, but I'm hoping that you really do see that you can, there is an endless array of colors that you can make. The Pure Artist Pigments have about 20 colors in the line, and I could sit and mix colors for 8 hours a day, probably for the next few months, and still not make all the different colors that I could, because I could make a color and then I could lighten it with white, I could darken it with black, I could add a complementary color to it and change that, and then add black and white to that new color. So it really is an endless, you want to see it up close. Okay, here we go. I don't know if we're going to get, oh,
Yeah, there we go. Switch to the overhead. Yep, there we go.
So there's the base, and then you could see those vertical lines of color. You can see where we added some of those bright accents here and there. See, the background is soft. So you can make this painting your very own. And I'm glad that you all have stuck with me through this class. And again, I hope I've given you more information than confusion. But if you want to, you can finish the edge of your painting. I would probably just paint it with some gesso and then take my gray mixture and blend that in softly and then you're done with it. Don't make it harder than it has to be. I think when you're finished, you should finish this or varnish this with a high gloss varnish.
Great. So Andy, why don't you show us what we've got coming up next week? Kirsten Jones is going to be back for those who have taken classes from Kirsten before.
She's
She is
fabulous.
teaching next week. And
Okay.
so Andy will show us.
I'm going to show you that, but I'm also going to show you how easy it is to clean up a wax coated palette.
Look at that.
Cleanup is done. Okay, so this is what Kirsten is going to be showing you, teaching you next week. Are we on the overhead?
I think go to the front camera.
Okay, go to the front.
There
camera,
we go.
okay?
Yeah.
All right, so this is what she's teaching. It is on glass, and I think it is painted on the front and back of the glass, or on two different panes of glass. I think she's using a paint pen with this too. It is so beautiful, and it is fun, and you are going to love. I'm about opened it up. I'm sorry.
So we did one of these the other night, and so I think it was maybe even last week. So if you are going to participate, try to go ahead and get yourself the double pane of glass, because then you can do it the same way.
Yeah.
Where she's got the painting, and then she's applied the lines over the top. So it's just a fun technique that I think y'all will enjoy.
It is absolutely great. It looks incredible in person, and you will absolutely adore taking a class from Kirsten. She is so talented and such a good teacher. So tune in Monday night. I don't know what the date is.
Well, yeah, next Monday, same time, same place.
Yeah,
we'll see you here. And as always, guys, make sure that if you do complete this painting, which we hope you do, go ahead and tag Make It With Michael, hashtag Make It With Michael's, hashtag Plaid Crafts. You can share it in the Let's Paint with Plaid Facebook group. We love to see you there.
Yes, if you put it in the Let's Paint with Plaid Facebook group, you could use the other hashtags, but add Let's Paint Challenge as well.
Yes.
All one word, no apostrophe.
Let's Paint Challenge, because this really enables us to see all these things, and we share them and we love them. So it's a lot of fun. Andy is in that group, goes live twice every week in that group, Tuesdays and Thursdays. So if you enjoyed this class, please be sure to join that group, and you can get lots more of this kind of stuff. All right,
Yes,
we are
indeed.
past time, so we got to wrap it up.
Yes, we are. Apologize for running over, but I hope everybody had a good time, and I cannot wait to see your paintings.
See you guys next time.
Bye.